my name's Joella and I'm with UMBC Rec. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to do about a 50-minute yoga practice. You won't need any props except for your mat or a non-slip surface. So go ahead and find somewhere where you won't slide around if you don't have a yoga mat at home. Please make sure that you're listening to your body as we move through our practice. I will give some modifications, but if at any time something feels stressful for you, please feel free to skip it. You can always rest in child's pose or just come to a seated position. And then besides that, please make sure you've checked with a healthcare provider before starting a new exercise routine. So we are going to start on our backs today. So go ahead and come on down to your backs. We're going to take our feet about mat's distance apart and then bring our knees into touch. And just relax one hand onto your belly and the other one onto your chest. And you can close your eyes here if that feels right for you. Otherwise, just allow your gaze to soften. And just take a moment to notice how you're feeling right now. Just connecting in your body and not really changing anything yet. But again, just noticing. And then begin to bring your awareness to your breath. Notice how your breath's feeling in your body this morning or today. Beginning to deepen your breath a little bit. Each breath gets a little longer. One more breath here. On your next inhale, take a deep inhale through your nose and sigh out your mouth like you were trying to fog up a glass in front of you. Nice deep inhale. And exhale, making a ha sound, letting it out your mouth. Last time like that. Deep inhale through your nose. And exhale, sigh it out. Now beginning to breathe just in and out your nose. In yoga, we breathe in and out of our nose because it helps filtrate the air, it helps concentrate our breath, and helps heat our body. But if at any point that doesn't feel right for you, please feel free to breathe out your mouth. It's more important that you breathe. But as you practice more and as you get more focused, try and breathe just in and out your nose. On this next inhale, see how much you can make your belly expand. So that hand that's on your belly, you should feel it raising up. And then exhale, feeling it fall back down. And again, deep inhale through your nose, feeling your belly rise. And then exhale, trying to make our inhales and our exhales the same length. And then seeing if one can flow right into the other. So there's no beginning or end, but your breath just flows from one to the next. This time, inhale, feeling it in your belly, and then feeling your chest expand under that other hand. And then as you exhale, feel it falling from your chest and then your belly. And again, inhaling through your belly, your chest, exhaling from your chest, and then your belly. Deep inhale, belly, chest, maybe this time feeling it through your throat. Exhaling from your throat, your chest, and your belly. 2 more times, inhale, belly, chest, throat, exhale, throat, chest, belly. Last one, belly, chest, throat, exhale, throat, chest, belly. Just release your hands down by your side and just notice how this feels. Maybe your breath feels a little deeper than it did a moment ago. We want to try and maintain this 3-part breath throughout our practice. So if you get to a point where posture is hard for you, come back to this breath. And if you can't maintain this breath, it might be a good sign that maybe you need to back out a little bit. On your next inhale, hug your knees into your chest. You can grab behind your hamstrings or your knees or up and over your shins, but wherever you can reach and feels comfortable, but keeping your low back, your sacrum, and your shoulders down to the floor. And then gently rock from side to side, just massaging your low back. Then on your next inhale, take like a good morning stretch. Reach your arms up, your legs down the mat. Deep breath here. And then exhale, hugging it all back in. Your next inhale, lifting your head, chest and shoulders up. Exhale here. Inhale, extend your hands and above your mat, legs below, but not coming down to the floor. And then exhale, hug it in. Inhale, extend. Exhale, hugging it in, waking up our abs, building heat. Inhale, extend. Exhale, hug it in. 2 more. Inhale, extend. Exhale, whoops. Inhale, extend. Exhale, hug it in. Go ahead, bring your head and shoulders back down to the floor, hugging your knees into your chest. Rock from side to side. Go ahead, bring the sole of your left foot down to the floor, keeping your right knee hugged in. Outer hips hugging in. And then extend your right foot up to the sky, any amount. Your knee doesn't have to come completely straight here, but it's like you're gonna stand on the ceiling in front of you. And you can hold on to your thigh here. Maybe you can interlace your hands behind your hamstring. Whatever feels best in your body. So not forcing it, just coming to like 80% of where you could be. So not a full stretch here. Still just waking up. One more breath. And exhale, lower your right leg down your mat. Inhale it back up to meet your left leg. And then hug your left knee into your chest. So interlacing your hands over your shin or behind your hamstrings, maybe just gently holding onto your knee. On your next inhale, extend your left foot towards the ceiling. Straightening that leg any amount. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. We don't want to be at our maximum stretch here, but maybe more like 80%. One more breath. And exhale, lower your left leg down to the floor. And then bend it back in to meet the right. So here we want our feet hip distance apart and parallel to each other. And then go ahead and if you have a mat, clasp onto the outer edges with your hands and use that to give you leverage to walk like your triceps and your shoulder blades kind of under your body a little bit. We're going to exhale here and inhale, pressing down into all 4 corners of your feet. Lift your hips up towards the sky, lengthening your buttocks flush towards the backs of your knees. So almost like scooping your tailbone under. And then on your exhale, bringing it right back down to the floor. So taking your full breath to make the movement. Deep inhale, hips lifting up. And exhale, bringing them back down. Continuing this about 3 more times to your own pace. Inhaling, lifting them up. Broadening across your collarbone, but keeping space between your chin and your chest. Keeping that length in your low back. Exhaling your hips back down to the floor. 2 more times. Inhale and lift. And exhale, lower. Keeping your knees pointed right out over top of your toes, so we don't want to let our knees splay out to the side. So you're going to have a little bit of internal action of your thighs, so think of your inner thighs pressing down towards the floor as your outer hips hug in. 1 more time, inhale and lift. And exhale, lower. Then we're just going to gently windshield wiper our legs from side to side, releasing our low back. Okay, so roll over to one side and use your top hand to just gently press yourself up to a comfortable seated position. Excuse me. So just a cross-legged position if that feels right for you. If you have something available and you're tight through your hip flexors, which you can tell because your knees would be up above your hips, you can sit on a yoga block, a pillow. You can roll up your mat and put it under your hips, but I suggest, most of us are very tight in that area, so I would suggest sitting up on something if you have it available. So sit up nice and tall. We want our spine to be long and having the 4 natural curves in our spine, so not hunching forward or overarching backwards, but you want your ear over your shoulder and your shoulder stacked right over top of your outer hip. And then just bring your fingertips down to the floor wherever they can reach. Maybe close your eyes here for a moment and almost imagining like your head floating up over your body, keeping you sitting up tall. We're going to do a few seated cat-cow poses here. So take a deep inhale and then exhale. Bring your belly button towards your spine, rounding your back forward, scooping your tailbone under, walking your fingertips forward towards your knees for a seated cat. And then inhale, expanding through your chest, hugging your shoulder blades together, extending your tailbone back towards that back edge of your mat, lifting your chin up for a seated cow. And then exhale, chin to chest, belly button to spine. Seated cat. And again, inhaling into that seated cow posture. And exhale, cat. This time we're going to hold it here a little bit. Maybe place your hands to your knees and just stretch through the back. Feel the back skin like across your shoulders stretching. Maybe it feels good to find a little extra movement here somewhere. One more breath. Inhale, sitting back up tall, expanding across your collarbones, walking your fingertips back behind you, looking up, taking a few breaths here. One more breath. And then coming back to neutral. We're going to come up and over our legs onto all fours. Or you can just swing them around if you don't want to come up and over. But our wrists are going to be right underneath of our shoulders and knees right underneath of our hips. So we don't want our hands narrower. We want to make sure that they're at least shoulder distance apart, maybe slightly further apart. And then you want your wrist creases slightly turned out to the front edge of your mat. And then knees right underneath of your hips, so there should be a little space between your knees there. And then feet right behind your knees, tops of your feet down to the floor. Exhale here, and then inhale, you're gonna reach your left hand forward just a shoulder height. Palm's gonna come to the midline, and then exhale. And then inhale your right leg up, foot flexed, toes and knees pointing down towards the floor, like you were gonna stand on the wall behind you. But engage your core here, because we don't wanna find an arching in our back, just our natural curves. So reaching the crown of your head forward, your tailbone back. One more breath. And lowering it back down to the floor, right where they lifted from. This time, inhaling your right hand up, just to shoulder height, palm faces towards the midline, like you were reaching out to shake somebody's hand. And then inhaling your left leg up, just to hip height. Foot is flexed, like you were gonna stand on the wall behind you, keeping your belly engaged. One more breath. And exhale, lowering it down to the floor, flowing through that. Inhale, left arm, right leg lift. Exhale, lower. Keeping your spine long, inhale, right arm, left leg. Exhale, lower. One more time on each side. Inhale, left arm, right leg. Exhale, lower. Right arm, left leg. Exhale, lower. All right. Walking your hands out, maybe just a half hand space out in front of you, still shoulder distance apart and slightly turned out. Tuck your toes under. You're going to press down into the balls of your feet and lifting from your inner thighs, hips up and back for downward facing dog. So pressing down into your whole hand, maybe a little bit more into your thumb and your index finger, and then wrap your triceps in towards your face. but then expand across your collarbone, sort of melting your heart back towards your feet. A little bend in your knees so that you can lift your tailbone up behind you to where the wall and ceiling meet. Prioritizing the length through your spine here over getting your heels down to the ground and your legs straight. One more breath here. Just relaxing your heels any amount while still keeping your spine long. The bottom of your next exhale, look towards your hands and walk your feet forward. So you're in a forward fold at the front of your mat. So keeping your hands just wherever you can reach. Maybe it's your shins or thighs, but in your forward fold here. We're going to keep them in contact with wherever they are. And exhale here, and inhale, coming into Ardha Uttanasana. Some people refer to it as a halfway lift. So you're lengthening your spine forward versus lifting way up from your pelvis. So your fingers are going to stay right where they were previously. And then exhale, release. Again, inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Expanding across your collarbone, pulling your shoulder blades together. Exhale, fold. One more time, pressing down through your feet, lifting up through your quadriceps. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, fold. Place your hands to your hips and then point your elbows up to the sky so you're broadening across your collarbone, hugging your outer hips in, pressing down through your feet, lifting up through your quadriceps. Come all the way up to stand. In Tadasana, mountain pose. So go ahead and you can face me or face the way you were. But stand in Tadasana, mountain pose, hands down by your sides, feet hips distance apart and parallel to each other. We're gonna lift our right leg up to hip height. If you need a little balance support, please feel free to find a wall here. And then externally rotate that leg in the hip socket so that your ankle is coming up to face the sky. We're gonna cross that right ankle over our left knee, and then any amount you can, sink your hips back. So we're in a standing figure 4 here. You can bring your hands to your hips, maybe to your heart, but pressing down through that left foot, hugging that left hip in so we're not letting it collapse out to the side. Breathing here. One more breath. Pressing down through that left foot, coming back up to stand, bringing your ankle away from your knee, neutrally rotating your right leg, placing it back down to meet the left. So other side, left knee comes up to hip height. We're gonna externally rotate that left leg, bringing your ankle to your right knee, hips sink back. So again, we're keeping that right hip hugging in, so we're not letting it fall out to the side. Breathing here. So spine's long, reaching up through the crown of your head, back through your hips. One more breath. Pushing down through that right foot, coming back up to stand, bringing your knee back up to hip height, neutrally rotating it and placing it back down to the floor. All right, let's come back up to the top of our mat if you were facing sideways. Again, feet hips distance apart and parallel to each other. We're gonna interlace our hands behind our back. So a couple options here. If you can, interlace your fingers and bring your palms all the way together. You wanna find an external rotation in your arms. So you're bringing your triceps together, but not necessarily like locking out. Well, you don't wanna lock out, but your elbows don't wanna be straight necessarily. If you can keep that right there, that's perfect. Otherwise, if you can't keep your palms together without locking out your elbows, I would suggest interlacing your fingers instead. Or like just your thumbs, I mean, like you're making a little bird puppet. Okay, either way, so hands interlaced or thumbs locked behind your back. Stand up nice and tall, pressing down through your feet. Inhale here, and exhale, hinge forward from your hips, allowing your arms to come up and over again, trying not to lock out your elbows. Weight's gonna be a little more forward into the balls of your feet so that your outer hip is stacked right over top of your heel. And just let your neck relax here. Staying here for about 3 breaths. On your next exhale, without it being like a slingshot, gently release your hands down to the floor. Bending your knees as much as you need to plant your hands down. We're going to step back into plank pose. So here it's an option to be on your knees. I would like a long line from the crown of your head to whatever's on the floor. So your knees or your toes. We don't want to have our hips hiked up. So you can kind of think of scooping your tailbone under here. So inhale here, exhale, you're going to hinge forward so your shoulders come over your fingertips, and then keeping your elbows pointed backwards, lowering down all the way to the floor. It's called Chaturanga. So here we want our elbows right over top of our wrists and our hands shoulder distance apart. Press down through the tops of your feet and then think of lifting your quadriceps up. They won't actually come off the floor, but we want that action. And then lengthening your tailbone down towards your heels. So exhale here and inhale, head, chest, and shoulders lift up off the floor, gently pulling your shoulder blades together here. Low ribs stay down to the ground for baby Bhujangasana or Cobra. One more breath. And exhale, lower down. 2 more times. Inhale, head, chest, shoulders lift. Exhale, lower. 3rd time, inhale, lift. Maybe a little bit bigger this time, as long as you can lengthen your tailbone down so you're not overarching in your low back. Exhale, lower. Now we're gonna inhale, press up through all 4, so keeping your knees on the floor, tucking your toes under, hips up and back, downward facing dog. Breathing here. Go ahead and lift your right leg to hip height for 3-legged dog. So we don't want it coming way up behind us, and we want our pelvis to stay neutral, so our front hip points pointing down towards the floor, as well as our toes and our knees. And then outer hips hugging in. So in a second, we're gonna step that right foot up to the inside of our right thumb. It may be a better option for you to place your left knee down first. But whatever feels best in your body, we're going to inhale here and then exhale, step your right foot forward. And it might take you a couple steps. You might need your hand to help you get it there. That's totally fine. So our feet are hips distance apart and spread out here. So they're like on railroad tracks in their own lane. That back heel is lifted but reaching back. And then here with your fingertips down to the floor, maybe you need to bring them up to your knees. That's perfectly fine. Broaden across your collarbone, hugging your outer hips in. That right knee is right over top of our ankle. And then press your left thigh up into that thigh bone, up towards the sky. One more breath here. Exhale here, inhale, sweeping your arms forward, coming up into high lunge, Anjaneyasana. Little bend in that back knee so that you can lengthen your tailbone down, but still reaching back through that heel. Outer hips really hugging in. One more breath here. Exhale, hands come down to frame your right foot and step it back into your downward facing dog. Pause here. One more breath. Inhale your left leg up and back just to hip height. Breathing here, so we're reaching back through that heel, keeping your hips hugging in so you're right over top of the midline and haven't wiggled out to one side or the other. And then pressing that thigh up towards the sky. One more breath. And then exhale, stepping your left foot forward. Option to place that right knee down, but stepping your left foot forward to the inside of your left thumb. So again, your feet are on railroad tracks here, spread out a little bit, not one right in front of the other. Outer hips hugging in, so we have a tendency of letting our left hip pop out. So make sure it's hugging in and that your left knee is right over top of your left ankle. We're gonna pause here for a few breaths. So broadening through your collarbone, think of your shoulder blades coming together. And then reach back through that right heel, press your right thigh up. Exhale here, and on your next inhale, we're gonna sweep our arms forward and up, putting a little bend in that back knee so you can lengthen your tailbone down and not overarching your low back. Hands are gonna be slightly forward of your ears so that we're not, opening up our rib cage, but that we're keeping everything contained here. One more breath. Exhale, hands are gonna come down to frame our left foot, and then step it back, downward facing dog. At the bottom of your next exhale, you're gonna walk your feet forward. So you're gonna forward fold at the front of your mat. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, that lengthening of your spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, arms reach out and up, Urdhva Hastasana, arms coming all the way up, and then exhale, Tadasana, mountain pose. Right away, inhale, Urdhva Hastasana, and exhale, hips sink back, Katasana, chair pose. So weight's coming a little bit more into your heels, spine is long, hips sink back like you were gonna sit down. Arms again in front of your ears a little bit so that you can keep your thoracic spine, that spine that's behind your rib cage, nice and long. Pressing down through your feet, knees pointing right out over your big toe. And exhale, forward fold. This time, so bending your knees, stepping it back into your plank pose again. Always an option to come down to your knees here. Inhale here, hinging forward so your shoulders come over your fingertips. Exhale, Chaturanga, lowering all the way down. We're gonna do a modified upward facing dog. If you would like, you can stay with that Cobra pose we did the first time. But this time, we're gonna tuck our toes under. And again, this is a modification. So pressing down through the balls of your feet, lift way up on your thighs so that they're almost lifting up off the floor. And then lengthen your tailbone back behind you. Wrists are right underneath of your elbows. We're gonna exhale here and inhale, press into your hands, coming up into upward facing dog. So the only thing on the floor are our hands and the balls of our feet. Broadening across your collarbone, shoulders right over top of wrists. Bringing your shoulder blades gently together. Lifting your front hip points toward your low ribs, so we're not overarching in our low back, but our back bend is coming from our thoracic spine. One more breath. Lifting up from our inner thighs, hips up and back, downward facing dog. One more breath here. Now this time, without bringing your leg way up behind you, we're gonna step our right foot forward to the inside of our right thumb. You might even heel toe that right foot out to the right one more time so that it's right where your hand just was. So really hugging our outer hips in here. We're gonna spin our left heel down to the floor. So you're pressing down through the outer edge of that left foot. Your toes are gonna be pointing sort of in the direction of the top left corner of your mat. And then internally rotate, like an internal action of this left thigh. So that left thigh is reaching in. Outer right hip reaching in. Inhale your arms forward and up for Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1. Arms up again in front of your ears. Breathing here. Really have to hug your hips in and really that inner left thigh needs to spin back as you press down to the back edge of that left foot. We're going to inhale here and then exhale, release your hands back behind you. And then again, just like we did in that forward fold, interlacing, clasping your thumbs or interlacing your fingers. But again, making sure you have some muscle containment there. So not just locking out your elbows, but externally rotating your upper arms. Maybe your index fingers can point back towards that back heel, expanding across your collarbone. It's a little back bend here. One more breath. And then making sure they don't spring apart like a slingshot, but nice and controlled, releasing your hands forward and up. Exhale, hands come down to frame your right foot. Left heel spins up, step it back, downward facing dog. 3 breaths here. One more. All right, on your next inhale, we're gonna step our left foot up to the inside of our left thumb. So right away, hugging your outer hips in, maybe heel toeing that left foot out just once. Spinning your right heel down, so your right toes are gonna come up and point towards the top right corner of your mat. Pressing down through the right edge, the pinky toe side edge of that right foot, and then spinning your right thigh in. Outer left hip really hugs in. Inhale your arms forward and up for Virabhadrasana 1 on the left side. Breathing here. Keeping that muscle engagement in that back leg. It's going to protect our low back. On your next exhale, releasing your hands behind your back and see if you can find the opposite lacing of your fingers. So whichever finger was on top last time, see if you can do it the opposite way. It's probably the way that's going to feel awkward. And then pointing your index finger towards that back heel. Maybe you're just interlacing your thumbs, that's fine. Expanding across your chest, little back bend here. Just breathing here. One more. Exhale here, gently releasing your hands, bringing them forward. And then exhale, hands come down to frame the left foot. Right heel spins up. Step it back to plank pose this time. Breathing here, you can always be on your knees. We're gonna hold this for 2 more breaths. Scooping your tailbone under so your hips aren't popping way up behind you. Exhale, lowering all the way down to the floor. So shoulders come forward over your fingertips, elbows pointing back, lowering it all the way down. All right. So bring one cheek to the floor, whichever feels more comfortable for you, and then extend your hands by your hips. Just pause here for a moment. We're gonna do, starting with a half shalabhasana or locust pose. So when you're ready, bring your chin back to the center, maybe your forehead, whatever's more comfortable for you. And then again, we're gonna extend our arms behind us, palms facing in toward your hips, thumbs down, look towards the floor. We're gonna press the tops of our feet down to the floor and find that lifting action in our thighs, tailbone lengthening back. Exhale here, inhale, chest, head, neck, shoulders lift. Reaching back with your hands, but forward through the crown of your head. Your gaze is down, so we're not lifting our head way up, but it's maybe a few inches in front of our face. One more breath here. And exhale, bringing it down to the floor, maybe bringing that opposite cheek to the floor. We're gonna do that 2 more times. Feel free to stay with whichever option feels best in your body. We're gonna take it up a little bit each time we go. So exhale here, coming back to neutral, so bringing your chin or your forehead to the floor. And then again, hands facing in towards your hips, finding that engagement in your legs. So pressing down through the tops of your feet, lifting up through your quadriceps, tailbone lengthening down. Exhale here, inhale, head, neck, arms, shoulders lift. Pausing here, inhale, maybe your legs lift. So reaching out through your toes, out through the crown of your head. And exhale, lower it down. Again, bringing one cheek down to the floor. Maybe windshield wipering your legs from side to side. Just releasing your low back. All right, coming back to neutral. So placing your chin or your forehead down to the floor. So this time, we're gonna find that interlacing of our hands behind our back. So maybe you're clasping your thumbs, maybe you're interlacing your whole hands with your index finger extended. Maybe your hands are staying right here by your hips. But pick what feels best in your body, remembering not to just lock out your elbows. So pressing down to the tops of our feet, lifting through our thighs, finding that external rotation of our arms. Exhale here, inhale, lifting up with your upper body, maybe your lower body lifts. 3 breaths here, you can do it. Toes and knees are pointing down towards the floor, so we're not letting our glutes take over and our kneecaps pointing out to the side. 1 more breath. And exhale, lower it down, releasing your arms. Bringing the opposite cheek to the floor, and again, windshield wipering your legs from side to side. Okay, so bringing your hands back shoulder distance apart and then walking them back so that they're underneath of your elbows. 1 more upward facing dog here. So tucking your, actually we're gonna do it the full expression this time. So on the tops of your feet, you can always take the earlier modification with your toes tucked under or just keeping in that baby cobra pose. So exhale here, wrist right underneath of your elbows. Inhale, we're gonna press through your hands, pressing through the tops of your feet. Shoulders come right over top of your wrist, expanding through your collarbone, lifting your thighs up, tailbone lengthening back. 1 more breath. Hips up and back, downward facing dog. Taking the time here, neutralizing your spine, so lifting up through your pelvis. A little bend in your knees so you can prioritize that length. 1 more breath. At the bottom of your exhale, looking towards your hands, walking your feet forward. So you're gonna forward fold at the front of your mat. So feet hips distance apart and parallel to each other. So your heel is right behind your second toe. Exhale here. And inhale, arms come forward and up, hips sink back into that Katasana chair pose. From here, we're gonna exhale, bringing our hands behind our back. Now, if this is getting to be too much for you, hands can be right here at your hips, interlacing thumbs, interlacing your fingers, but you pick which one feels best in your body. We're gonna press down through that right foot, hugging our right hip in, and lift your left foot off the floor about 1 inch. From here, exhale, hinging forward, nice and controlled, straightening through that right leg, sending your left leg back to hip height for Virabhadrasana 3, Warrior 3 pose with a modification. So rooting down through that whole right foot, lifting up on that right quadricep, really hugging in your right hip, seeing if your left pelvis, like the left side of your pelvis is in line with your right, so you're not letting it drop down or lift way up. You're flexing that back foot like you were going to stand on the wall behind you, expanding through your collarbone, arms reaching back. On the count of 3, we're going to come to a forward fold. 1, 2, 3, forward fold. Breathing here. Almost there. 1 more breath. Exhale here, inhale, arms sweeping forward and up. Utkatasana chair pose. We're going to exhale our arms down, back behind us, interlacing your fingers or hands on your hips, maybe the opposite interlacing, expanding through your collarbone. We're going to press down through our left foot, lift our right foot off the floor about 1 inch, and then exhale, hinging forward, straightening through that left leg, sending your right leg back like you were going to stand on the wall behind you. So lifting up through that right thigh, hugging your left hip in, breathing here. One more breath. All right, on the count of 3, coming into forward fold. 1, 2, 3, forward fold. Just breathing here. All right, we're going to come down to a seated position, so however that feels best for you. For me, I'm just going to cross my ankles and bring my hips down to the floor. But if you need to do it in this different way, that's totally fine. All right. So go ahead, extend your legs in front of you, coming into Tadasana, staff pose. So again, this is a place where it might be good for you to sit up on something like a pillow if you have one at home, or if you have a yoga block, certainly a yoga block would work. But again, just elevating our hips. You can have a little bend in your knee here if that feels good for you. But we're gonna sit up tall, so ear over shoulder, shoulder over outer hip. Feet flexed, knees can be a little bent. And just sit here and notice how you're feeling. Maybe closing your eyes for a moment. Let's place our hands to your hips and see if you can feel, I refer to them as your like front hip points, but your hips right at the front of your body here. So we're gonna do a forward fold, but we want that fold to come from our pelvis and not from a rounding in our back. So we might only move another inch, okay? And that's okay. So inhale, sit up nice and tall, and then exhale, tilting your pelvis forward, bringing those hip points closer to our thighs, forward fold. Spine still long, so reaching up through the crown of your head. We're gonna stay here for about 3 breaths. Thinking of expanding on your inhale, and then softening on your exhale. One more breath here. On this exhale, allowing your spine to round forward. And your inhale, coming back up to a seated position. All right, we're gonna bend your right knee, bringing your left foot flat to the floor. Inhale, sitting up tall, lifting your low ribs like up and away from your sacrum, so you're making space here. And then exhale, we're gonna twist to our right. So bringing your left arm around that right leg and bringing your right arm just behind your right hip. Again, lifting up from your low ribs. Both sits bones should be in contact with the floor, so we're not lifting one hip up above the other. One more breath. And exhale. Unwinding here, we're gonna extend our right leg, bending your left foot in. You want to keep your whole foot planted on the floor and both of your sits bones, the little bony protrusions at the bottom of your bum, connected to the floor. So you should have a little bit of a space between that foot and your knee or your thigh. So sit up tall, inhale here, and then exhale, twisting to your left. You can bring that right arm around that knee and bring your left hand behind you just for support. It's like a little kickstand, keeping you up straight. And then if it feels okay in your neck, you can look back over your left shoulder. Breathing here. All right, on your next inhale, unwind. And then I'm gonna spin towards you so you can see me a little better. We're gonna open our left knee out to the side, bring your right knee in, and allow it to open up to the side. So we're coming into Katasana, sometimes called like Cobbler's pose or bound angle, but bringing the soles of your feet together, and then you can just rest your hands here on your ankles, but sitting up tall here. So if you have pillows, you can place them under your knees here if it feels uncomfortable for your knees to be there unsupported. But your feet can be as close to your inner thighs as feels right in your body. So sitting up tall, again, we want ear over shoulder, shoulder over outer hip. We're gonna forward fold again, but again, this movement should be coming from your pelvis and not a rounding in your back. So sitting up tall and then exhale, hinging forward. Breathing here, maybe you can use your elbows to gently guide your knees a little deeper into that stretch. We did a lot of neutrally rotated poses today, So warrior one, high lunge, chair pose, all of those are neutrally rotated poses. So this one is external, so it's a nice counter pose. One more breath. And inhale, coming back up to a seated position. Use your hands to bring your knees back together, and we're going to come down to the floor. So feet flat to the floor, knees bent. And then again, we're going to hug our right knee in towards our chest, keeping your left foot planted down to the floor. From here, bring your arm to the inside of your right knee, and then maybe you can reach up for the outer edge of that right foot. If you can't reach your foot, I would suggest just keeping your hand behind your hamstring here. But that right knee is going to come up towards our right armpit, and you're going to, any amount that you can, bring your right heel over top of your right knee and flex your foot like you were going to stand on the floor, or excuse me, on the ceiling. And then we're going to make sure that this left leg is still coming to the party and it's still engaged. So your left foot's pressing down to the floor, hugging your left hip in, so we're not just letting it, flop out to the side or anything. Breathing here in this half happy baby. And then at the same time, you want those hip points moving away from your low ribs. So we want to maintain that natural arch in our low back. So maybe your low back just lifts off the floor just slightly, like you can slide your fingertips right under there. Breathing here. And then slowly coming back out of that. So just hugging that right knee back into your chest. And then lowering your foot back down to the floor to meet the left. All right, opposite side. So again, engaging that right foot. Your whole right foot is pressing down to the floor. Your right hip's hugging in. Your knees pointing right up to the ceiling. We're going to hug our left knee into our chest. So before we even come into that half happy baby, check in on your low back. Okay, we don't want it to be like pressed down into the floor, and we don't want to have this huge arch in it. You can't really see because I'm wearing a big t-shirt, but just a nice little lift in our low back. So as you hug this knee in, make sure you're maintaining that little lift and you're not allowing it to collapse down towards the floor. And it'll straighten a little bit. We just don't want to completely press our low back into the floor. So bringing your left knee up towards your left armpit, either grabbing the backs of your left hamstrings or bringing your elbows to the inside of your knee, your hand to the outer edge of your left pinky toe, flexing your foot like you were going to stand on the ceiling, bringing your ankle, your heel over top of your knee. And breathing here. One more breath. And then gently and slowly releasing that left foot, bringing it down to meet the right. We're going to make our way into Shavasana, final relaxation pose. So you have some options here. You can bring your feet wide, knees into touch, just like we did at the beginning of class, if that feels best on your low back. Otherwise, you can extend your legs down your mat. Maybe you have blocks or pillows you can prop up behind your knees. That might feel good. But take your time to set up here in a position where you can get out any fidgets and just take a few moments to be still. We don't spend a lot of time sitting still and being focused. So, or maybe you do, I don't know, but I don't. So taking a few moments to find stillness here. And close your eyes if that feels right. Just allow your breath to be natural. Allow your body to take up space. And just relax down into the floor. feeling supported by the floor beneath you. We'll stay here for just a few moments. Bringing your awareness back to your breath. And then invite movement back into your body, wiggling your fingers and your toes. And then take your time, but roll over to one side and pause there for a moment. You can use that top hand to press you back up to a comfortable seated position. And we'll take one more breath here together before we complete our practice, sitting up nice and tall. Deep inhale, arms reaching out and up. Exhale, hands through heart center. Thank you all very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed your practice. Again, my name is Joella with UMBC Rec. I hope you have a great day. Namaste.